So for this week's video assignment, my video would be on compound words. Unfortunately, I don't have any students with me, and due to being out and everything, school has ended, so I don't have any students. But if I did, this is how I would teach it, especially for kindergarten, first grade students. So a compound word, we would talk about how it is a word that is made up of two other special words that we smash together, and that when we smash it together, it creates a brand new word. And the cool thing about compound words is that when we read them and see them, we could see actually that there are the two separate words that we could just split right through. So the word cup and cake makes cupcake, and lady and bug makes ladybug. I would use it very interactively and have the kids use their hand and do like cup and then cake in the other hand, and then clap it together and smush it together to represent that compound word. If I was using this with a small group, especially with ELOs, we would talk about how this word is really just two words that we just kind of bring together, and they're like best friends and they don't like separation. And we would do a lot with the dividing so that the kids could actually see that, hey, cupcake is actually just really cup and cake together. Birthday is really just birth and day together. We would continue on by playing a fun little compound word game where the students would get a compound words sheet and everybody would get a cupcake. Funny enough, because it's cup and cake. And what they would do is that we would have all of these cards and they would be laid out on the table. And the idea is that each person has to make a compound word, and it has to be a real word. It can't be a nonsense word. So if they think that the word snow and sea, they would put those, our compound word, they would put those in their space, and we would discuss as a group, does that sound right? Does snow sea sound like an actual word, or does that sound like a silly word? Because especially with little kids at that kindergarten, first grade level, trying to distinguish between nonsense and silly words, which just makes us sound silly and makes us laugh, which would be how I would identify those two. And a real word where we can actually hear it, it sounds right, it sounds familiar, we know that that's a real word, it's a big thing to do. So we would ask everybody around, do we think snow sea is a real word? And they would say no. And if they said no, we would say great job, and how can we figure out, is there another word that we could use with snow and get rid of the sea that we could do, or could we get rid of the word sea and replace it? Things like that out of using our words, so that way everyone feels, involved and doesn't feel bad. And when they would have a word that is on their list, they would go ahead and write the word, everyone would write the word on their compound list, and then the next person would play around. And then, usually I like to, at the end, I like to give them a few minutes at the end of the lessons, and I'm like, go ahead, on the back, write silly nonsense words, and split them, just so that way it's just for a nice informative check, and just make sure that, yeah, even though it's a silly word, they're still having fun, and that they're still understanding the idea. And then for a I do portion as a way to really make sure, even though that this was a great way, we would play this compound word split game, and then they would have the word, and I would have them take their pencil or a colored pencil, and I would have them actually find the split where the two words meet up. So that way, one, I could see physically and with vision that, hey, they are realizing that, okay, fingernail is really just finger and nail together, and they're splitting it. And then it makes it a lot easier to write each individual word. If I had an ELL student, on the other hand, again, depending on their level, higher up students can definitely do this. Probably higher up on the WIDA scale could do the whole page. Mid-level, I would give about half. For beginners and newbies into the English language that are learning, I would just have them do one or two. We would do one together. But also, if they're really, really new, visual coloring is a really great way. It's the same idea as this one, except instead of just rewriting it, they color each part of the word differently. So shoe would be one color, lace would be the next color. And I wouldn't make them do all of this, especially as beginners. I would probably make them pick 3 or 4, just so that way I could see, are they understanding it? And we would do it together, and we would say the word slowly and just enunciate it, like bed, room, bedroom. So that way they understand that that word is really two splits that we could put together. And yeah, that's kind of what I would do. And as challenges to that, if we had extra time, have them pick their favorite words on the compound list and have them write a sentence or two using that compound word, which would be a fun way to incorporate writing. And you know, just because they're kids and they're little and they're silly, make them just have fun with it. Kind of how I would teach the compound words.